having said that our introduction is all about growth, we now pose the question, how is the CEO, how's the CIO positioned for this growth? And we've got 4 themes here. There is obviously the skills gap, and we've got some interesting things there. Then there's the question of diversity, the first time that we've included some questions on gender balance, for example. And then we will talk about digital. That's been a fascinating area for our other CIO events. I'm sure we'll have the same discussion tonight. And then the CEO relationship. So all of those well-trodden paths, we're going to take a little bit of a journey, and we're going to see whether the CIO is indeed positioned for growth. Now, it looks like skills aren't an issue in overall terms. However, when we talk to people, and we talk to CIOs, they don't give us the same reading. They generally say getting talent is the most important thing. I'll give you an example. A company that I know that the founder of was bought by HTC a year ago. He's a client, they're a client of ours. They were bought by HTC, the big mobile company. And I happened to get onto a train with him, and we were chatting, and I just said, what's the biggest issue you're facing? You know, you've been acquired, and I was expecting him to give me the sort of integration issues, cultural differences, the friction in the process, the change in management style, all of those typical post-M&A things. And he just said, do you know what it is? We're desperate to get top talent. We just can't find the talent. So although 47% said there was a skill shortage, they were struggling to get talent, my sense is that that's actually much higher. Although it's come down a lot from 2008. Now we'll maybe ask the panel why that is later. On to the diversity question and gender balance. This is, you could say, is quite a tough one, because over 5 years, not statistically perfect or scientific in any way, shape or form, but it's basically similar or consistent to 5 or 7 years ago, which is actually not that dissimilar to most other industries at the top. So CIOs, any C-levels, what's the level of gender balance at the C-level anywhere else? It's probably similar. Interestingly, we'll get onto a question or two later, but many of you might actually talk about your teams, and the teams are becoming much more diverse, and we're seeing at least 1 in 5, at least 20% of teams being more balanced by gender. And we've got some interesting theories on this. I was speaking to the chairman of Intel, Dr. Jane Shaw, and she said to me in California 3 weeks ago that her view was that technology was seen as an engineering field 30 years ago. So in terms of its attractiveness as a vocation compared to medicine, law, accounting, marketing, it wasn't as attractive. So we don't have the pool of C-levels coming through because of the stigma, if you like, of it being engineering focused. In her view, the chairman of Intel was that this was changing, and that the whole beauty about social media is changing the image of IT as well. So we'll talk about that a bit later. Here's a point. We can't move forward if we don't know who's in charge. So who's in charge of digital? Is it shared? Is the digital strategy an IT strategy? Does the marketing department have some responsibility? In fact, there's no clear answer. You've all given us a mixed response. We found actually that the discussions are much more interesting in that you're far more unified in your real opinions about this once you get an opportunity to voice them and air them. And then finally, the contented CIO. Now, over the years, I've been saying CIOs are tremendous. They're loyal. I never see a CIO who's demotivated. CIOs generally, they're loyal to their people, loyal to the company. The projects, you just want to get those projects done successfully on time in budget. And you're loyal to that. Unlike many others, CFOs are traditionally not as loyal to the companies. CFOs are most likely, in our opinion and in our view, more ambitious in many respects. They're happy to cut and run if they can get an extra cut on the pay. CFOs have always been more likely to become CIOs. So we've questioned this. We've said, right, is there something we can say about the way that the CIO is actually interacting with the board in terms of maybe changing his approach? And the first thing we've said is, well, if we look at the CIO salary, for example, it's stagnated. In this particular survey, actually, the reading for freezers has gone up globally. So salary freezers are rising. People are actually not getting any more money anymore. And you'll feel this, we all feel it. Cost of living is outstripping increases. So we said, right, what's the ingredients with salary? And our marketing department put together a very algebraic looking formula there. So I'll reveal it in a second. And the first one is budget, B for budget. So this is quite obvious. It doesn't seem to be good value, though, if you're dealing with $1 million of budget and you're being paid $150,000 yourself. But that's where the graph starts. So budget at the bottom here, $1 million. And it looks like, and this is obvious, as your budget goes up, so your salary goes up. And it actually goes from 50 to 5 billion. In other words, it multiplies by 10 times. And the average salary rise is about £50,000, 60,000 euros, for $75,000. So there's a band of well-paid CIOs who, it looks like the entry level is just short of $100,000, or 100,000 euros broadly, and it looks like the top salary is around 250,000 euros, I'd imagine. And for that, the budget increases enormously. So companies get good value for money here at the top end. Now, I is for industry, and this is obvious, your salary is linked to where you are. And the first thing that struck me when we saw this, and this has all come through our survey, so we're not proposing this as a hypothesis, this is what the respondents come out in terms of their salaries and budgets. And it looks like that food and drink, IT services, and retail are very well paid. Now, we all know that financial services have been very highly paid in the past and still continue to be. But interestingly, the complexity of retail, logistics, consumer, FMCG, the complexity of those sorts of systems, the sheer hard work and the budgets involved drive salary. So I'd imagine budget and industry are pretty well linked. And then you come down, and I don't think it's too controversial that the public sector, construction and charity at the bottom. But the one bit that I was surprised at, but not surprised when I thought about it, was the lawyers don't pay us anything. So legal is one of the worst places to be if you're a CIO, in more ways than one, I'm sure. XFactor. So we had budget, then we had industry, now we've got XFactor. And XFactor is something that we can't really give you a formula, we can't give you a slide. But I can tell you that there's an individual that I've met recently, and I'm going to see him again in August, and that's the CIO of Facebook, who's a contact of ours. His name's Tim Campos. If you Google him, you'll find out that he's a well-educated software engineer with, or he's an engineer with an interest and a focus on technology. And so he's got some great opinions, and when you meet him or when you hear him, you'll immediately see he's got XFactor. And so the only thing we can say about XFactor is that it's an ability to communicate. When we see it, we know it, we vote for it, whether it's on the Saturday night TV voting programs, or whether it's simply we see a politician or we see a leader and we are drawn to their charisma. And it's all about communication. So XFactor really is deep knowledge, a good intellect, but more than that, it's the ability to communicate. Now, Tim Campos tells us that the social media wave is only just beginning. Okay? He says that we're going to see many multiple waves coming of innovation as a result of social media.